Growing up in Columbus, Georgia was very interesting for me. It was also very self discovering in the sense that I had an opportunity to meet a lot of different people outside of school, outside of the home. But my schooling environment was very much like me. It looked like me. It sounded like me. The relationships, the experiences of the people I went to school with were very similar to what I had gone through or was currently going through at the time. So I was the kid that loved school. I loved going to school. I loved being at school. I loved meeting new friends at school. And there was never a lack of awareness of being black. I knew what black was. I knew what that meant. But it didn't really seem to be an issue for me when I was growing up. I was always involved in a lot of stuff, made good grades in school, always involved in school. But I was a kid that played soccer. I was cool. I was a kid that was in theater. I was a kid that was in chorus. And a lot of times I would be maybe the only black kid or maybe one of a few black kids doing some of those things. But at that time it didn't really seem to be an issue for me. It was more of, oh, that's Chris who plays soccer, or that's Chris that is in a chorus, or that's Chris that's in theater. He just happens to be black. So it was never an issue when I was growing up, through middle school. I just happened to be the black kid that did some things that other black kids didn't do, but it never seemed to be of a great concern to me. It never seemed to be a great concern to my friends or a great concern to my parents. There were many times when I felt being black really had its advantages in the environment that I grew up in, because some of the things that I was doing, where I was maybe one of few black kids, I was able to share experiences that maybe my friends didn't have. So I thought that was cool. Um, so elementary through middle school, I was very comfortable with being labeled the black kid. But when I got to high school, it was a little bit different. And I began to step outside of those comfort zones and I began to work. And it was really in the working environment where things shifted for me. And it went from, oh, that's Chris who just happens to be black. And it became, that's Chris. Oh, do it because he is black. So I used to work at a bank and I also worked at Kmart. And I had some very uncomfortable experiences. I was never called the N word, but I was treated differently. And I knew I was being treated differently just because I was black. And at that point in my life, being black had no advantages, but it was truly a disadvantage. It was a barrier and it caused limitations for me in ways that I didn't know how to respond. One example would be working at a bank in Alabama as a teller. And part of my job is to receive deposits from customers and give them great customer service. I thought part of that would be relayed back to me in the same sense, being very friendly and courteous. I had never had someone not want to touch me, touch my hand, put money in my hand because I was black. Just because I was black. Despite the fact I was human, despite the fact I was kind, despite the fact that I was courteous, despite the fact that I was loving and I was understanding, even forgiving, just because I was black, I was less than. And it seemed as if I wasn't good enough. That was new to me. I had never experienced that before. That really began to shape and really cultivate my awareness of what blackness really meant. And at that point, I thought blackness was not empowering, but it was a disadvantage. It was limiting. And I struggled with that. It was truly not until college and even in my adult life that I really began to cultivate and discover not being just black, but the power of my blackness. And really learning about what black is, what black is perceived to be, but what truly black enables me to become, how it enables me to exist, how it enables me to confidently walk in my being, walk in my blackness, stand in my blackness unexcusably. And I understand that now. Power is blackness. Although some people find that to be very intimidating. That's not my issue. The fact that you may not want to touch me, you may not want to talk to me, you may not want to ride in the elevator with me, or you get off the sidewalk when I walk past you. I have no issues with that because that's your issue. But I have really learned to appreciate who I am in wholeness beyond being black. I'm so much more than just being black, but I am black. And my existence and my experiences are rooted in being black. The things I've experienced, the things I've learned to deal with, things I've learned to overcome, a lot of those things have been because I am black. My strength and my power that I now possess is because I'm black. So, as a researcher, I have to understand that and understand that sometimes people may not share the same experiences that I have. They may not tell the same stories, or the perspective in which they tell the story could be totally contrasting to the view that I'm given as a researcher. But I've got to be willing to allow others to tell that story from whatever vantage point they have, whether it's their whiteness or their blackness or their Asianness or their multiculturalness or their Christianness. There is a story to be told, and I think there is power in telling the story of whatever that perspective is. Mine just happens to be from a perspective of a black individual. And so, me understanding who I am desires for me to understand others' story. And I want those stories to be told. I want to hear the stories. I think those stories need to be shared beyond the culture, beyond your intimate circle, beyond the researchers that value what you do. And so I will say I tend to have a desire to tell the black experience. Because that's what I know. But it doesn't inhibit me from expanding my mind and being open to learning more about other people in other cultures. So, I was Chris who just happened to be black. Then I became Chris, the black guy. And do it just because he is black. And now I'm Chris, the powerful black man. That's a brand new story I'm ready to tell, and I'm walking in that truth. Unexcusably and unashamed. I am black. And I'm still discovering my blackness every day.